Starting with caveman times, Tekken has always been a series that wowed audiences with its unique and explosive character roster. Every game in the series features an insane variety of both real-world martial arts and slapstick shenanigans, but as the series has mostly existed during a time when online updates weren't common, these early rosters were final. No balance changes, no bug fixes, and no extra characters. Take it or leave it. However, with the release of 2012's Tekken Tag Tournament 2, this notion was put to an end, as the series now had its first batch of DLC characters. Nowadays, paid DLC fighters are commonplace in the fighting game scene as they serve as one of the primary ways for developers to maintain player retention rates, but in the case of Tag 2, all of the DLC fighters were free. That's right, every single one of them cost nothing, so players of all financial backgrounds could afford to install them onto their consoles. As I personally don't have much experience with these fighters, I thought it would be really fun to cover them all in a video, so that's what we're here to do. Please keep in mind that I'm not a Tekken expert, and I'm getting my information from various forums, character discussion threads, and YouTube videos, so a massive shout out goes to those who created all these, especially Fergus. His character comparison videos are a godsend, so please go show him some love. Also, if I miss anything that you feel is important, consider leaving a comment so we can all learn more. Okay, with all of that out of the way, let's explore the DLC fighters of Tekken Tag Tournament 2.
Ancient Ogre.
Making his grand return from Tekken 3, Ancient Ogre is here to demonstrate why he's known as the God of Fighting, with some of his moves being lifted from other characters. Marduk's 4-3-2, Kazuya's 4-4-3, and Bruce's back forward 4, among other moves, are all found in his surprisingly concise move list, making versatility one of Ancient Ogre's greatest strengths. He has access to solid punishment tools, safe launches, great wall carry during tag assaults, and long-range whiff punishes, so on a surface level he seems really strong, but in reality, the community has never seen it this way. A common complaint about Ancient Ogre I saw online is that although his moves are effective, he doesn't have the tools to supplement them in neutral. Kazuya might be able to combine his wave dash with a hell sweep or a 4-4-3 or an electric as part of his mix-ups, but this can't be said for Ogre. He simply doesn't have any scary movement options to intimidate the opponent, so if they know the matchup well and don't throw out buttons that can whiff, Ogre's effectiveness as a point character will be lowered. Speaking of the matchup, I noticed that many of Ogre's attacks would be very hard to deal with if you're a beginner or an intermediate level player, but if you're above these skill levels, you shouldn't have a problem dealing with his primary sources of damage. Experienced players will make mental notes to watch out for Capital Punishment, Waning Moon, Blazing Kick, Back 1+2, Sidestep 4, Down Back 2, Forward 3, Forward 1+2, etc., with this strategy also applying to his infinite kicks. These kicks will most likely frustrate the hell out of newer players, especially when he switches to the low variant, but you would never see this working against a pro player. Ancient Ogre is also weak to sidestepping right, as many of his most damaging tools will whiff in this situation, leaving him open to big punishment. Thankfully, there are homing moves that let Ogre deal with lateral movement, but these can be defended against by aware opponents. As there's no frame data display in Tekken Tag 2, I'm unsure of just how unsafe some of these attacks are, and with how the only page that contains this information being removed for some reason, Ancient Ogre isn't the easiest character to learn if you want to dive deep into frames. Overall, he is a far cry from being the strongest fighter in the game, but with animations this brutal, how could you not want to try him out?
Angel.
If you've ever wanted to play as a female Mishima, then look no further, because Tekken 2's Angel is here to please. Angel's ability to take to the skies and pummel the enemy with a variety of physical hits and projectiles makes her seem quite similar to Devil Jin, but unfortunately she is 10 billion times worse. Because of how obscure her inclusion in this game was, I gathered information from what's essentially an essay on the old Tekken Zaibatsu forums that goes into detail when explaining why she sucks, and after reading it all for myself, I'm shocked that the game's balancing team thought that she was okay. For starters, all of her mid-pokes take at least 15 frames to come out. That's right, all of them. Even her generic down forward 1 is a 15 frame move, and don't get me started on the other ones. Her knockdown potential is also horrible, as you have to rely on counter hit down 1 or regular down forward 1+2, but both of them are minus on block, and on hits she can't follow up with anything good. Angel's poking also leaves much to be desired, as her long range tools are slow to start up and leave her at a disadvantage on block. The most egregious example is her down forward 4, as it's minus 9 on block and can be teched if the move connects as a counter hit. If Angel wants to mix the opponent up, forward 3 enters a stance with 5 follow-ups, but experienced players will easily be able to deal with this. They'll be able to break her throw, block her reactable low, duck her high, and block her mids, assuming she doesn't get blown up during the move startup. To make matters worse, Angel can't cancel out of the startup animation, so she has to commit to a follow-up. On top of all of that, Angel's movement is dreadful, with her backdash being arguably the worst in the game. It's super slow and covers almost no distance, so good luck trying to use backwards movement to create openings. When moving forward, Angel can utilize the classic Mishima Wave Dash, and this is probably the only good thing about her. She can throw out an Electric Wind God Fist, a Hell Sweep, or a wall-splatting mid, but that begs the question, why choose Angel over Devil Jin, or Kazuya, or any other character for that matter? Most, if not all characters in the game have better movement, poking, punishment, counter hits, mix-ups, tag assault routes, etc., so I genuinely can't think of a reason why you would actually choose Angel over a regular Mishima. A general rule of thumb I've thought of is that if Angel has a move that looks okay or kind of decent on the surface, further analysis will reveal a major flaw that dampens its viability, so I'd only recommend Angel to those who love to torture themselves by playing undercooked characters.
Dr. Bosconovitch.
Taking the role of Tekken's ultimate joke character, Dr. Bosconovitch returns from Tekken 3, and he's as hilarious as ever. With a wildly unpredictable set of moves, opponents of all skill levels can be thrown off their game plan if they don't know the matchup, so if you're a low tier hero who loves to knowledge check opponents, you owe it to yourself to check this guy out. He's amazing! Okay, maybe that's an exaggeration, because it's no secret that Dr. Bosconovitch is super weak. The good doctor has multiple stances that he can enter after connecting with certain strikes, and they allow him to launch the enemy, hit them low, or do whatever else you can think of. This means that his game plan is to force the enemy into a situation where they have to deal with a mix-up, and with how odd these animations are, good luck reacting to them on the fly. Figuring out ways to safely transition into each stance in neutral is the hallmark of a strong Dr. Bosconovitch player, as you can get some tricky pressure going if you stay slippery with your movement. Entering these stances outside of a connected attack is very risky due to their prolonged startup time, and the risk-reward often isn't in your favor if performed this way. If the enemy attempts to strike you, the Doctor has a parry that has a crap ton of active frames. It's not fantastic, but it feels cool to use, and it also looks really funny if you whiff it. On the other hand, Dr. Bosconovitch lacks quick pokes with good range, as many of his attacks will whiff from at least mid-range. He does have moves that cover more distance, mind you, but they're slow to start up and can easily be counter-hit. My favourite of which is his Sit Stance 4. He shoots across the screen and hits the enemy low, and if you condition them to block this way, you can throw out a launching mid. Realistically, any character with strong movement tools can easily outmaneuver the Doctor and poke him to death, as his range and frame data are really mediocre. As far as I can tell, he doesn't have any low-risk, high-reward pokes that can be used liberally at a variety of ranges, encouraging Doctor players to learn which moves to use at certain distances. If you can find the time, I'd suggest throwing out a Fort 4 every now and then. If it hits, you get a full combo, but if it's blocked, the Doctor remains grounded, and some characters will have trouble striking him for big damage when he's down here. Even if he does somehow land a big hit and moves into a combo, his damage output is kind of on the lower side, so I hope you're near the wall and have a strong tag assault route. On the topic of tag assaults, Dr. Bosconovitch doesn't have standout tag combo filler, so you'd mostly want to use him on point. His gimmicky nature lends itself to being on the battlefield, as he doesn't have the tools needed to put fear into the hearts of enemies as a support character. I'd be lying if I told you that Dr. Bosconovitch was an amazingly viable fighter with plenty of legitimate strategies applicable in high-level play, but that's not what he was designed for. He's meant to be a character you pick up to mess around with when playing with friends, as if they can't handle the pressure, the Doctor will send them straight to the infirmary.
Kunimitsu.
As one of the Tekken OGs, Kunimitsu is a ferocious fighter with one of the coolest designs I've ever seen in the series, and when I saw that she can do this, I knew that I had to try her out. A standout move is her down forward 2, as not only is it safe, but it has great range. Using it to keep enemies at bay and fear being launched is good for when you want to reclaim control of the match, but if they start stepping, back 2 can catch them. This move is a homing wall-splatting mid that is safe when spaced, and it's only -10 anyway, so it's quite strong overall. If the opponent becomes frustrated and tries to rush you down, forward 1+2 is a safe on-block mid wall splat, and forward 3+4 is a safe counter-hit launcher. If they get really impatient, forward 1+2 is unblockable, so it goes without saying that Kunimitsu has some spectacular offensive tools. If the opponent keeps their distance, forward 3 leads to a running stance that can be cancelled into a full crouch. Kunimitsu can use this run to throw out a delayable high string that counter-hit launches, a mid counter-hit launcher, a mid backflip, and a non-hitting backflip that leads to a monstrous high with lots of pushback on block. On top of this, Kunimitsu does very high damage with some particularly flashy animations, so she's gotta be a triple S tier ultimate powerhouse god of a character, surely. If only. Kunimitsu has very few reliable lows, as most of them are slow and unsafe on block. Down back 4 has good range, but it's -14 and it doesn't do a lot of damage, so many opponents will be fine with taking the hit and not risking being struck by a mid. Actually, this strategy applies to most of her lows, as the only useful one I found during my testing was full crouch down forward 3. It leads to a combo on hit, but even this isn't great. Kunimitsu's entire game plan falls apart against characters with strong defensive/keep-out options, as she doesn't have the tools required to open them up. Most of her stronger attacks are highs and mids, so if you just stand there and block high, you're kind of winning the matchup. Kunimitsu also doesn't have a proper 1+2 grab, as the one she does have is a side switch that does no damage. This leads to her grab game being lackluster, so pokes and launches are her bread and butter tools in neutral. She can be used to effectively smother enemies in endless pressure loops when at lower to intermediate levels, but as you find more and more players with real matchup experience, the gimmicks will lose their flavor almost immediately. Now let's say that the roles are reversed and Kunimitsu is the one under pressure. Well, her hop kick doesn't crush anything, and when combined with its average range, you would be lucky to land this consistently. Okay, don't get me wrong, I think Kunimitsu is an extremely fun character with lots of really unique qualities, but she struggles hard when on defense. For any other fans of rushdown fighting game characters, I think Kunimitsu's Tag 2 iteration might just be what we look for in a character. She's the most fun I've had playing Tekken in a long time.
Don't forget about
Michelle Chang.
Michelle sort of reminds me of Bruce, as although there were staple characters in old school Tekken, Tekken 3 introduced newcomers to replace them, with Julia taking Michelle's spot in the roster. Over a decade later, she's finally made it back, and you can think of Michelle's fighting style as representing the original Tekken duology, whereas JC is a more modernized version. Both fighters share many attacks and combos, although there are some major differences that Michelle throws into the mix. Firstly, JC's forward 1+2 is a mid that involves her leaping at the enemy, whereas Michelle has a knockback move that hits high. The move does massive damage, leads to a wall splat, and is great for whiff punishment. Down back 1+2 is a counter hit launcher with a follow-up, whereas JC's version is the bridge. This move might look kind of odd, but it is pretty good at avoiding highs, and it can be used to hit crouching opponents. Forward 3 is the classic swift step, and it can lead to a high, a mid, or a low that launches on counter hit. Down forward 2 can be cancelled into swift step both on hit and whiff, providing Michelle access to stance pressure when in neutral. JC, however, has a forward roll, with a high, mids, and a throw being the available options. Speaking of throws, Michelle's generic and command grabs generally leave the enemy closer to her position, so they're much better for Oki. There are some exceptions mind you, with Shining Wizard being the big one, as JC gets better follow-up pressure here when compared to Michelle. However, if we were to compare JC's Deja Vu with Michelle's classic Mad Axes, we find that the opposite is now the case, with Michelle being able to pressure more effectively. I can't help but find this all to be very ironic, considering JC is supposed to be a full-blown wrestler, but oh well. To be honest, I never really cared about Michelle prior to researching her for this video, and despite my newfound appreciation for her, I still think that JC is the greater fighter. In my view, she has stronger Oki, mix-ups, punishment tools, and combo filler, but that's probably a result of my JC bias. In reality, Michelle is a very capable character who thrives on landing counter hits and throws, so her opponents have to be careful when in close proximity. Determining how to punish some of her more unorthodox strikes can lead to frustration for players who aren't aware of the Michelle matchup, and if they become overzealous, you can strike them down in an instant. Many of Michelle's tools found their way into Tekken 7's iteration of Julia, but I still hope that she can somehow come back one day. Her outfit and animations are way too cool to be left in the dust.
Miharu Hirano.
First appearing as Xiaoyu's friend/clone in Tekken 4, you might know Miharu for her hilarious selfie attack, and I don't know about you, but you couldn't pay me to get that close to a grizzly bear. Outside of that, she functions a lot like her predecessor, so much so that you might think that they're identical outside of visuals at a first glance. One of Miharu's unique attacks is a butt slam that works out of her back turn stance, and I say works with giant quotation marks. The attack has poor range and no follow-up opportunities, whereas Xiaoyu can perform an amazing looking jumping strike. When in Phoenix stance, Xiaoyu's 1+2 is only -1 and keeps the enemy right in front of you, whereas Miharu's is -10, although it does have noticeable pushback, making it hard to punish when spaced. These attacks are better suited to aggressive and defensive players respectively, although I do think Xiaoyu's is a lot better just because of the frame data, being -1 is pretty good. Now that I've mentioned aggression, if Miharu wants to strike a grounded opponent, down 4 is a stomp so cool that she can't help but pop off afterwards. Keep in mind that this animation cannot be cancelled, so I hope you don't do it at the wrong time. Another quality of Miharu's that I found to be quite strong involves her full crouch, as she has access to a launcher and a low. The launcher can be charged to catch enemies who are docking, whereas the low is a normal hit knockdown that guarantees a follow-up, and you can even tag buffer it. Xiaoyu's low here is a multi-hitting strike, but as this doesn't knock down, I see Miharu's version as the superior attack. On the flip side, Xiaoyu's up forward 3+4 is a flurry of kicks that ends with a confident landing, whereas Miharu botches the landing and ends up falling over. Ouch. This difference in skill is especially apparent after a wall splat, as although Miharu can combo here, it's not as strong as Xiaoyu's offerings. Another point goes to Xiaoyu with her down forward 1+2 grab, as it does high damage and side switches, even when broken, making it great to use when your back is to the wall. Miharu's throw does less damage and has no Oki, but it does leave them stuck to the wall and it also balcony breaks, so it's not too bad overall. Outside of throws, Xiaoyu's back 4-4 is a mid-high string that can catch enemies who attempt to step to her weak side, whereas Miharu's back 4-4 is a -14 high-high that automatically transitions into back turn stance. The risk reward usually isn't in Miharu's favor when committing to the full sequence, so I hope you're careful when throwing it out. As Xiaoyu has been a series mainstay and fan favorite character for over 25 years now, I highly doubt Miharu will ever return in a modern Tekken game, but at least she got a spot in the timeline once again in Tag 2. You may not be part of the roster anymore, but at least you can keep cheering Xiaoyu on from the sidelines, Miharu.
Sebastian.
Je serai votre adversaire.
As perhaps the most debonair member of the character roster, Sebastian decides to take a break from being Lily's butler. What's most interesting about our butler companion is that, for some weird reason, the game considers him to be female, and he can counter at his bitch slap as a result. Moving on, Sebastian was more popular than Lily during online matches, and this is due to one move in particular, his down back 4. Lily's version doesn't do anything special on normal hit, but Sebastian's launches, leading to solid combo routes. Yep, he has a launching normal that hits low, and when taking the game's delay-based netcode into account, you can start to see why he was good online. Despite being a Lily clone, Sebastian's move list doesn't contain her 4-2-3. This is both a great 13-frame punisher and combo filler tool, so not having it is a huge blow. Sebastian tries to make up for this with 4-2, and if it lands as a counter hit, 1+2 is a natural follow-up for massive damage. If you're feeling risky, you can slightly delay the final hit to catch enemies who like to press, but this won't work against anyone who knows the matchup. Lily can also style on the opponent with some up forward 4 acrobatics, with 3 being a follow-up that connects on counter hit. It goes without saying that she can score massive damage when using this at the wall, so you would hope that Sebastian has it too, right? Wrong, because he has a very dainty jumping kick instead. There are no follow-ups out of this, and even though he twirls around without a wonder in the world at the end, the move seems safe. It's not too bad if it connects, but its lengthy recovery makes it a death sentence on a whiff, however. Lily and Sebastian also have different forward 1+2s, and I believe the latter is Lily's old move from Dark Resurrection. It's -12 and knocks down on normal hits, so it's not too bad overall, although Lily's being a bound tool makes it infinitely more useful for combos. She also has a really cool While Rising 3, and you can press 4 for a follow-up that bounds, making it great for wall combos. Unfortunately, Sebastian doesn't have this, as he performs a handstand kick instead. This too has a follow-up, but I don't think you can link any other attacks after the enemy falls over. Sebastian's back 1 is a safe counter hit launcher that hits mid and places the enemy into a crouching state, whereas Lily's back 1 has a counter hit follow-up with 4. This wall splats for massive damage, and in my view, I think Lily's is slightly better because of this. Before we move on, I should also mention that Sebastian has smaller legs than Lily, leading to certain combos being impossible. Lily might not have a problem ending this combo with 3-1, but Sebastian is gonna have to stop skipping leg day. His health sweep and counter hit launches make him a very potent fighter for online warriors, but I don't think he can beat out Lily's style and legacy. I still love Sebastian though, and the idea of a butler being a playable fighting game character is a fantastic idea. His outfit is also killer.
I can take you on any which way.
Speed and weight may be the catchphrase of regular Bob, but Slim Bob sacrifices the weight for a more balanced physique. Despite them looking almost identical on a surface level in terms of gameplay, there are some important quirks that Slim Bob brings to the table. Upon entering training mode with both Slim and regular Bob, I noticed that their forward 1+2 throws throw the enemy at extremely different heights. Normal Bob can get a juggle here in his sleep, but Slim Bob struggles hard. Forward 1+2 and up forward 1+2 also cause Slim Bob to fall over from the impact, seemingly making it more challenging for the enemy to punish. This sounds amazing, but it does lead to him losing Oki and easy wall combo opportunities when utilizing these attacks because of the pushback. These aren't the only differences in weight, mind you, as if Bob inputs a While Rising 3+4, he's gonna land on his butt. But this isn't the case for Slim Bob. He also jumps slightly higher here, which gives enemies a bit more time to react to the animation. If regular Bob lands a counter hit back 3, he can use down back 2 to start a combo without bounding, but this is impossible for Slim Bob, as he has to use his down back 4-4 to continue the combo here. Normal Bob also has longer jab range, making it easier for him to poke the enemy in neutral, as well as scoring lengthier combos, although his movement wasn't quite as proficient as Slim Bob's. As a result of being significantly skinnier than his counterpart, Slim Bob has an easier time using sidesteps to evade attacks, as well as being slightly safer on block. Regular Bob's full up forward 1+2 string is death on block, but because Slim Bob is smaller, the enemy has to micro walk forward and then launch. Little details like this will throw enemies who are unaware of the matchup for a loop, but at the end of the day, you shouldn't be constantly throwing out moves like this anyway. From what I could tell during my research, it seems that the community viewed regular Bob as the stronger fighter, with the lack of recoil on certain moves and easier counter-hit combo routes being deemed as too critical to have removed. Plus, the sheer size of Bob's stomach is the first thing that everybody notices about him, so to remove it is almost blasphemy. Without it, Bob ends up looking a bit generic, at least in my opinion. I don't think that Slim Bob is an unusable or even a bad character, but you just can't go wrong with the original.
Unknown.
Returning as the ultimate final boss, Unknown is the result of Jun Kazama turning to the dark side, with their moves having some wildly different properties. Some of Unknown's attacks have follow-ups that regular Jun can only dream of having, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Take a look at 1+2 for example. Not only does it look straight out of an anime fighter, but it also functions as a snapback. Jun's 1+2 is totally different however, with it being a 12-frame mid that leads to a combo on counter hit if the enemy doesn't break the stun. A more realistic use of Unknown's powers involves her spikes, as she can use these in combos to strike the enemy from a distance, and it's tremendously satisfying to land a sequence like this. Up forward 2 can also be used to shoot out a spike in neutral, and you can think of it as a ranged mid attack. Down 2 functions the same as well, as its low hitbox and bounce state make it great for close range pressure. But let's say that you're in a situation where the opponent can tech roll. If they don't, you get a float combo, and if they do, Unknown can sidestep and attempt to throw. As the spike slightly obscures Unknown's arms, breaking the throw becomes quite challenging, so I recommend going for this whenever you can. Another important throw is down forward 1+2, as it can lead to a balcony break. Jun's is stronger in neutral due to its Oki potential, but if you want a combo that begins from a throw, you can't go wrong with Unknown. To make it even cooler, Unknown can tag back into Jun during the throw if they're on a team together, and this will eliminate the enemy's red life. None of this applies to Jun obviously, but both fighters share the ability to perform standing reversals. Jun's reversal has a solid amount of active frames, good damage, strong Oki, and it can be tag buffered, whereas Unknown's hits them once for low damage. That's pretty much it, and to make matters worse, the timing is a lot stricter than Jun's parry, so good luck hitting it. Another shared attack is sidestep 2, with Jun simply knocking them away. However, Unknown hits them with a 1-2 for 51 damage. As they land right in front of Unknown, you have all the Oki opportunities in the world, so trying to escape might just be their downfall. During my time in trading mode, I also realized that both Jun and Unknown possess some similar combo routes despite their totally different powers, and this came as quite the shock to me. On a surface level, they look like entirely separate fighters, but there's more carryover between them than you might think. Prior to making this video, I had never played as Unknown before, and if I ever get the chance to play Tag 2 with friends in the future, I'll definitely try her out again. She's a whole lot of fun, especially because of her unique spike attacks and dramatic animations.
Violent.
Just try it. I dare you.
I've saved the most stylish for last, as it's now time to examine the main character of Tag 2 story mode, Violet. Tekken fans will know that Violet is actually the alter ego of series staple Lee Chaolan, but our purple friend was blessed with his own character slot this time around, and there are some notable differences between the two. Lee's Sway 3-4 is a 2-hitting strike that launches the opponent quite high, and you don't even have to commit to the full string if you don't want to. On the other hand, Violet switches it up by using his Cossack kicks from Tekken 4, and in addition to having great range, it's a very consistent tag combo starter. Lee's Sway 4 involves him getting a full body workout as he goes low, and on counter hit you can score a full combo. If the enemy decides to stay down after being knocked over, Sway 4 is great to use here too, as it hits grounded. Violet's version is totally different, as he does a simple low kick. It doesn't launch on counter hit, but at least you get a slight crumple. Unlike Lee's Sway 4, this one doesn't hit grounded, so its use is limited in these type of situations. Up forward 3+4 with Lee is a safe high that is plus 15 on hit, allowing you to naturally combo into 4-2-1 for massive solo damage, especially when at the wall. Look at this. Violet's on the other hand is a mid that knocks the enemy away on hit, and is punishable on block at minus 14. It also doesn't wall splat, meaning Violet can only dream of having Lee's damage output here. Finally, Lee's Acid Storm is a consistent punishment tool to use when you're outside of hop kick range, and it's also quite simple to execute. Violet's version is called Acid Rain, and it's a close range launcher that requires multiple just frames. You have to input the second kick as the first one connects, with the same logic applying to the third and final kick. If performed correctly, you can score a combo, but this is quite the difficult move to pull off. When I was recording footage of this string in action, my hands nearly fell off and died, so I can't imagine how challenging it would be to consistently land this in a real match, especially when tournament nerves are messing with your execution. If I had to pick one of these characters, I'd probably go with Lee, as his up forward 3+4 and reliable Acid Storm steal the show for me, although the range of Violet's Cossack kicks is incredible. Despite their differences, I believe that both characters are viable enough for fans to use, and you can make it even cooler by using both of them on a single team. Even though some of these characters are painfully underpowered, I still love the unique flair each character brought to Tekken Tag Tournament 2, and it was a blast researching them all and messing around in trading mode for this video. Developing one of these fighters, let alone all of them, would have cost Bandai Namco quite a bit of money, so it was an incredibly generous move to make it so that every player had access to them for free. In a better world, other fighting game studios would also do this going forward, but I guess even Namco caught wind of how much profit they could generate if they started charging extra for Tekken 7 onwards. Anyway, I recorded footage from the Wii U version of Tag 2, which thankfully comes with all the fighters pre-installed onto the disc, so there's no downloads. If you want to own the most complete version of Tag 2, I would highly recommend picking up a copy of the Wii U version online and seeing what you can find in training mode with your favorite character, even if they realistically stand almost no chance of winning a real game. Okay, if you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you and your time, and I hope you had fun. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.